We are back on Inside Politics. Our guest today, Nashville Congressman Jim Cooper. Congressman, President Trump went before the nation earlier in the week on Monday and unveiled his new path forward to win the war in Afghanistan. We've been there now 17 years. It's the longest war ever. Does he know something nobody else does about how to win this in terms of talking with his generals? It doesn't look like on the surface there's anything there that's going to make a huge difference. We're not increasing troops that much.
I think you're exactly right, Pat. I think the president mainly did the speech to change the subject, to get it off of Charlottesville and all that stuff. The president offered very few specifics. We don't even know the number of troops that he's thinking about sending over to Afghanistan.
Yeah, we think 6,000 or 7,000, but we're not sure all the troops that are being counted right now are actually being counted correctly.
You're exactly right. It's a small number regardless, and there doesn't really seem to be a new strategy. But the most shocking thing about the president's speech was it was a complete reversal of not only all his campaign pledges on Afghanistan, but everything he said about Afghanistan for 16 years. He has been against U.S. involvement over there, and now he's for increased involvement, have kind of a mini surge. He pointed out the problem we have with Pakistan. That's a semi-friendly, sometimes poisonous neighbor.
Now he's threatening sanctions against them.
And that's going over like a lead balloon with Pakistan.
And that's a nuclear power.
Well, it looks like he's very clumsy in handling this situation. I don't know anybody in the military who's really enthusiastic about the president's approach. This is a curious situation. As I say, I think the president's speech was primarily to change the subject and get it off of Charlottesville.
Well, what about, he claims that the generals have convinced him to do this. Now, he has lots of generals in his administration, but what were the generals able to convince him about that made him change 17 or 18 years worth of his thoughts about this?
Well, the generals have been those that advocate that we have as good a relationship as possible with Pakistan. That's the neighboring power. That's the ungoverned space. That's where the Taliban and these other terrorist elements go and hide once we root them out of Afghanistan. And then when we're not looking, they just come back across the border. So it's really an almost impossible situation for our military to be in when you have attempted control of one country but no control whatsoever of Pakistan.
Well, it's easy to second guess. What is your plan about Afghanistan? Should we just get out? Should we follow the British, follow lots of other empires that have gone in there and found out that that's an interesting part of the world that you really can't conquer or control?
Well, American foreign policy since Vietnam has not been very successful. We need to start having a plan that gets successful. And after 17 years, I value the contributions and sacrifice of our servicemen and women, but we do not have any better handle on the Taliban than we did then. There are massive bombings even in Kabul, the capital city. What we're doing now is not working, so a new and better approach would be welcome.
It does seem that what we've been doing in Iraq lately has been successful, and it seems to me we've had a pattern of when we've been successful in Iraq, we haven't been successful in Afghanistan, and in times we've had some success in Afghanistan, we have not had it in Iraq. Am I seeing things, or why is that? Why is it happening that way?
Well, they're two completely different countries, obviously. And we forget sometimes that both countries are heavily influenced by Iran. And Iran has an interest now in hurting ISIS. So Iran has been working through Iraq to try to get at ISIS. Iran probably has a different motivation in Afghanistan because they have helped fund the Taliban and groups like that because they want to plague America as much as they can. So it's extraordinarily complex, and I just value the fighting and contributions and sacrifice of our men and women in uniform because they're the heroes in this, and they have not been properly served by their political leadership.
One contrast I want to ask you to comment on. The president makes his speech on Monday night. He does it in the conventional way before an audience of military people from a teleprompter. Then the next night he goes to Arizona and has a rally, which most of what he delivers is extemporaneous. Do you occasionally feel, as I do, that perhaps you're not sure you're seeing the same person because they don't act the same way? There's a presidential feel to one, the other maybe not as much.
Well, if you want to advocate for the president, you'd say one was a presidential speech, the other was a campaign rally. But really, the president should not be campaigning, you know, for the 2020 race here 3 years in advance of that. I thought it was jarring and out of place, and in many ways deeply disturbing, because we want a president that we can count on. We want a president who's seen by foreign leaders as strong and reliable. We want a country that's second to none. And right now, we're not seeing that. Senator Corker pointed this out when he said he doubted that we had the stability or the competence in the White House to really get the job done. And that's a pretty harsh criticism from a fellow Republican on the president. But most Republicans I know are at least saying that in private, if not in public. So I give Senator Corker credit for being that outspoken and that honest.
In some ways, Senator Corker was probably what you'd call first over the wall, and usually those are the people that do get shot, at least shot at. But you say you see this from other Republicans privately. Is there going to be a time, or do we reach a critical mass where more people start saying that publicly?
Well, look at Senator McCain in Arizona or Senator Flake. And nobody is a bigger war hero.
At least with McCain, he's been at odds with Trump going back to when he was a candidate.
But throw in Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, throw in Susan Collins from Maine, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. There's Senator Ben Sass from Nebraska. All these are Republicans, and they're all deeply worried about the Trump presidency. And these are fellow Republicans. They want the party to succeed. The Wall Street Journal says today that basically Trump is no longer a Republican. He's an independent, and he's at war with the Republican Congress.
So we have three parties. We have the Democrats and the Republicans in Congress, the Republicans controlling both of those, and the White House is controlled by what? The party of Trump?
Well, it's his personality, because you know that Trump was a Democrat for most of his life, then he was an independent for a while, then he pretended to be a Republican for a while, and what we really saw was a hostile takeover of the Republican Party. And now he's essentially ungovernable. He's already had a couple of chiefs of staff. Now General Kelly is trying to manage him, but he seems to be completely undisciplined and unfocused. And this is where the comments are coming out. People who've met with him say, hey, they're deeply disturbed that he can't contain a train of thought for very long. And that's not good in a leader. You want consistency and you want strength.
Okay, let's take a break. We're talking with Congressman Jim Cooper from Nashville, and we're here. He's on break right now because Congress will come back in session in September, which is going to be quite a month in Washington. Back to continue our conversation with the Congressman after this break.